a highly respected species that helped found the United Federation of Planets. The Vulcan people have a long, fascinating history that stretches back 4.5 billion years to the progenitors, which seeded life on many worlds, some of which eventually evolved into the many humanoid species of the galaxy, including humans, Vulcans, Klingons, and Cardassians. Roughly 600,000 years before the founding of the Federation, the Aretan species, which may also have descended from the progenitors, explored the galaxy, colonizing many worlds which may have included Vulcan. Yet they eventually grew so powerful they considered themselves gods, leading to a civil war in which they destroyed themselves and their home planet. Adapting to the environment of Vulcan while competing for resources to survive, their people evolved into a violent, chaotic species in a near-constant state of war and conflict for thousands of years. Worshipping gods of war, death, and peace, prehistoric Vulcans developed their own mythologies, like the story that all creation originated in the ancient paradise of Shakari, and celebrated various pagan rituals like Rumori, where they stripped and chased each other around covered in Rillen grease. As technology continued to progress, the Vulcan people achieved spaceflight in the 4th century by Earth calendar, possessing weapons capable of destroying their planet. Realizing their volatile society was on the brink of self-annihilation, a new philosophy quickly spread across their world, rooted in the teachings of Surik, a scientist and philosopher who brought forth the Age of Awakening, in which Vulcans learned to suppress extreme emotion, to instead embrace logic as the central tenet of their lives. Although many accepted these new teachings, others refused to change their way of life, leading to an atomic civil war in which Surik was killed. However, his Katra, or consciousness, survived, finding a way to transfer into a statue, where he remained until found in the 22nd century. Eventually, the more violent, traditional faction, known as those who marched beneath the Raptor's wing, were defeated, and so they left their homeworld to found the Romulan and De Bruyne civilizations. What little contact remained between their peoples over the centuries largely proved hostile, with Romulans and Vulcans provoked into fighting a 100-year war at some point before the 21st century by a powerful Q of the Q continuum. Although Surik's philosophy took hold across the planet, his exact teachings were lost over time, leading to various interpretations of his beliefs. Even so, the violence of the past greatly diminished, and the population united under a single government. However, as a consequence of witnessing so many positive developments, their people became rigidly dogmatic in their beliefs, entirely intolerant of anyone who disagreed with the established system. And so conflict arose when any individual or group expressed interpretations of Surik's teachings that fell outside the mainstream of accepted thought, like the Vatash Katur, or those without logic, who believed emotions needed to be embraced and controlled rather than suppressed. Persecuted by other Vulcans, the Vatash Katur went into exile, ready to find a new home or else wander the stars, exploring their philosophy in peace. Then there were the Serenites, who believed the people and government lost their way and no longer followed the true teachings of Surik. Despite these minor problems, the focus on logic and use of meditation to strengthen their minds and mental powers led them to become beings of exceptional intelligence, with great physical strength and resilient bodies, able to speak telepathically and suppress emotion. Ancient rituals like Rumori were set aside, while others like Kunut Kalifi, meaning marriage or challenge, were kept intact. Although Vulcans were capable of mating whenever they wished, an evolutionary remnant of their biology meant they continued to experience the Pon farr, desperately driving them to mate every 7 years. If a Vulcan was unable or unwilling to satisfy these urges, they could lose their mental control to a blood fever in which they could only mate or kill. Fostering a culture of arranged marriages, families often chose spouses when children were still young, and the bond could only be terminated through Kalifi, in which 2 men fought to the death for the female, or when the female refused to accept her betrothed, fighting herself or naming a champion. Although marriage rites and other customs retained a connection to their ancient past, in most other ways, Vulcan culture changed drastically, imposing rigorous academic standards on their children, while also teaching them to meditate and suppress emotion. Thriving in an environment of peace and cooperation, their people once again made great technological progress, so that by the 19th century, they were an advanced, prosperous, spacefaring civilization. Eager to explore the galaxy throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, Vulcans made contact with many other species, including the Andorians, Tellarites, Klingons, and others, establishing peaceful relations with most of their neighbors. Yet while Vulcans were often respected for their honesty and intelligence, their serious demeanor made it difficult for some to embrace their people. Although initial contact with the Andorians was friendly, relations grew strained over time, leading to conflict and war over border disputes. Based largely on a system of meritocracy, the government of Vulcan, known as the High Command, was theoretically comprised of all the best diplomats and leaders on their planet. Of all the alliances fostered by this government, their most productive relationship developed with the humans of Earth, whom they observed for many years, avoiding first contact until 2063, when they reached the technological threshold of developing warp drive. Entering into a partnership with the United Earth government, Vulcans helped them advance their technology and become a part of the galactic community, yet they purposely slowed humanity's rate of development so they might mature as a species, eliminating war, disease, and poverty while embracing equality and peaceful coexistence. To the surprise of many, humanity proved remarkably quick to learn and adapt, with Vulcans needing 1,500 years to accomplish what humans achieved in less than a century. Although the High Command continued to keep some technology back from their allies, with their ships able to reach Warp 7 while humans remained at Warp 5, by the 2150s, they were largely regarded as equals, with Captain Jonathan Archer of the United Earth government ship Enterprise NX-01 and his Vulcan First Officer T'Pol doing much to strengthen the bonds between their people, exposing corruption and treason in the Vulcan government, which led to a significant reformation, replacing the High Command with new leaders who were grateful to Earth for their assistance. Archer also helped negotiate an alliance between humans, Vulcans, Andorians, and Tellarites, known as the Coalition of Planets, originally formed to oppose the aggression of the Romulan Star Empire, who oppositely were working to undermine this growing friendship between rival powers, even striking a secret deal with the former High Command to bring their ancient kinsmen into the Star Empire. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Sir Darin of House Ashford, Fred Heartless, Knight of Iron and Ice, Zong the Black Wolf, and Barachado. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.